Today we're talking about how a suit should fit. For this video, I'm going to talk only about the jacket. I'll do a follow-up video about the trousers and the vest. The most important part of a jacket is the collar. This sets the tone for the fit of the whole jacket. This is the collar. And the key is that it's the right size for your neck, so it hugs your neck all the way around with no gapping. What you absolutely don't want is a collar gap. This happens when a jacket's neck hole is bigger than your neck, so you get a gap like this. Looks like someone's pulling you off stage. That can throw off the whole fit of the jacket and just looks really sloppy. Another common issue we see with the collar, and we did a whole separate video about this, is what we call a collar roll. This is a lump of fabric on the back of your neck as shown here, and is often caused by square shoulders or erect posture. What you want is the back of the jacket to have a nice smooth drape and a nice clean line from your neck all the way down your back. Like this example, not like this one. Finally, with the collar, from the back, you also want to have about a ½ inch of shirt showing. Now, this can require a lot of adjustments depending on the length of your neck, your posture, your head position. Where the collar sits on the back of the neck plays a big role in our fittings and can tell you a lot about a person's body. After we make sure there's no issues with the collar, the next most important thing we look at is the shoulders. Now, you really want the point-to-point, or the width of the shoulders, to line up with exactly where your arm starts. If the point-to-point is too big or the shoulders are too wide, you're going to end up with a little lip like this under the shoulder pad. Like these three amigos. Looking real lippy. On the other hand, if the point-to-point is too small or the shoulders are too narrow, you'll see the arm blowing out of that shoulder seam. Now, you can get away with this, especially on a soft jacket or one that doesn't have shoulder pads, but in my opinion, it's always better to have broader shoulders, so you can create an upside-down triangle and taper the waist a little more. You see here, I try to illustrate with a narrow shoulder. The line from the shoulder to the stomach is relatively straight, so it makes the shoulders look smaller and the stomach look bigger. You see, if you extend the point-to-point or make the shoulders wider, then that angle from the shoulder to the stomach starts to make more of a taper. So now it makes the shoulders look bigger and the stomach look smaller. A lot of this is tailoring theory, but it has real effects on the visuals and how a person is perceived. Like with this adjustment, this guy's going to look like he's in better shape. After we make sure the shoulders are in the right place, then we look at the chest. The first thing you want to make sure is that the chest is big enough and you have enough coverage from the armhole to the lapel. If the chest is too large, then you have a little extra fabric pooling right in front of the armhole. You really want that front chest to be nice and clean and hug you. It creates a nice silhouette. If the chest of the jacket is too small, the first thing you'll see is the lapels won't lay flat. They'll buckle or bow out like this, which can be exaggerated if the jacket is too big in the collar or too tight in the stomach. When you think about the chest, the most important thing is that the lapels create a straight line. They go straight from the neck to the buttoning point, creating a nice flow, allows the fabric to drape, and creates a great silhouette and shape for the jacket. After the chest, we move straight over to the armhole because it's directly related. This is an important part of the jacket, especially in terms of mobility and comfort. You really want the armhole to be as high as possible without being uncomfortable or pinching you in the armpit. A high armhole will allow you to move around better and have a trimmer, more fitted sleeve. An ill-fitting jacket with big armholes will have like bat wings and will feel very restricted. Now that we've looked at the collar, the shoulder, the chest, the armhole, the top block of the jacket is fitting well. So now we move to the midsection. The first thing is the button stance. Now, the buttoning point of the jacket is the smallest part of the jacket, so you want it to line up with the smallest part of your torso to get the most taper. When it comes to tightness or allowance in the stomach, this is a bit of a personal preference, but we typically do about 2.5 to 4 inches difference between the body stomach and the jacket stomach. Basically, you never want to see any pulling at the button. If it's pulling, the fabric is wrinkling at the button, then it's too tight. A good test is you should be able to button the jacket with one hand very easily. It should be natural to button it. Now, this might be a good time for me to add a little caveat here. A lot of these things depend on your body type and your style. It's not necessarily a one rule for everybody type of thing. For example, the button stance on a bigger guy or a shorter guy, we might go deeper to create a longer line, make him look a little taller and a little slimmer. Working our way down to the bottom of the jacket, what we call the seat and the hips. You want the bottom of the jacket to cover your whole seat without any extra fabric. If the hips are too small, the vents will splay open, which is worse on a single vented jacket because it really opens and shows the butt. If the hips are too big, you'll have extra fabric at the sides, or the jacket might even flare out a bit. This jacket is actually too small for me in the hips. You can see how the vent is opening around my seat a little bit. The red line shows where the vent really should be, falling straight down and covering the full seat. While we're talking about the bottom of the jacket, one note is that the hem should be parallel to the floor, with the front being a little bit longer than the back. And this tells us a lot about the posture. That's why we examine a side photo when we do our fittings. If you stand hunched over, then the front's going to dip low and the back's going to be hiked up. On the other hand, if you stand very straight or erect, the front's going to be hiked up and the back's going to fall a little bit lower. Now, this is a bit more aesthetic than functional, but I like the front of the jacket to be longer than the back. This gives the feeling of the jacket or the person coming forward and coming at you. It's a little more commanding. It's like when you have a lower gorge line, lapel sits a little bit lower. The whole jacket's tilted forward, so it looks like it's coming at you. The opposite effect is when the front is hiked up or the lapels are too high. It looks like you're falling backwards. It's not a very powerful position. When it comes to the length of the jacket, we typically shoot for the crotch level. So right where the legs of the trousers meet at the crotch, that's where you want the jacket to hit. Now again, a lot of this is personal and can change for different body types. For example, if you're a big guy, you don't want the jacket to be too boxy, so we lengthen it a bit. Or sometimes on a shorter customer, for example, we'll make the jacket a little shorter to lengthen the leg line, make him look a little taller. You also want to consider the proportions of your torso versus legs and try to balance that. So again, a lot of this is personal, but generally the crotch level is a good place for the jacket to be. When it comes to back length, like a good lawyer, a good jacket should always cover your ass. The reason I included this is sometimes on a double-breasted jacket we'll go a little bit longer because double-breasted is supposed to be a little dressier, a little more elegant, and a longer jacket looks a little more sophisticated. You don't want a double-breasted jacket, which can already appear a little bit wider, to look too boxy, so sometimes you lengthen it a little bit. When it comes to sleeve length, we typically shoot to show about ½ inch of shirt below the jacket sleeves. Now again, this can change depending on customers. Sometimes with shorter guys, we go 3/4 to make the arms look longer, or with really big guys, we go a little bit longer so it doesn't look so stumpy. One thing to note about this is that it's important that the sleeve also fits well. You don't want the bicep or the wrist to be too tight. Just like when you sit down, the bottom of your pants should never catch your calves. When you shoot your arms out to reach for something, the wrist of the jacket should never get caught in your forearm. You shouldn't have to pull it down or adjust your clothing physically at all.